Ask the Podcast Coach for May 10th, 2014.
Let's get ready to podcast.
All right, welcome to Saturday morning. It is Ask the Podcast Coach. That would be me, Dave Jackson, from the School of Podcasting, where you get your podcast questions answered live. You can call them in. It's super duper easy. Any question you want to ask about podcasting, it's 845-262-2401. You can find us every Saturday at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time by going to schoolofpodcasting.com/live, or if you feel so inclined, askthepodcastcoach.com/live. It'll take you either place. And again, that phone number is 845-262-2401. And again, I'm Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me as always is the one, the only, Jim Collison from theaverageguy.tv. We are having a lot of fun this morning. Jim, how are you?
Good morning, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you.
And one of the things we're going to talk about today, which is kind of funny, is what happens if you do an epic fail. And I'm on a roll this morning. I've done two. We're going to peel back the curtain. And first, when I started the show this morning, I said, ask the podcast coach, for blah, 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 April 5th. And then I played the wrong theme music. I'm sitting here with my amp, and I went, ask the podcast coach. And, of course, everybody that's live is like, yeah, Dave, are you going to do these all again? But I started to play
Picking up your skin and get ready.
Which, of course, is the theme music for the podcast review show. And speaking of that show, I also published a episode this week of that show. And to make a long story short, that had the intro music twice because, and as I say this over and over and over and over and over again, always listen to your show before you upload it. And I have done it religiously for probably the last, I think I published maybe 2 a year that I don't listen to. And, it's May, it's time. So I published one without listening to it. And as always, the one you don't listen to is the one that has the boo-boo in it. And so, of course, I came home and...
Isn't it fun when your listeners find that for you too?
Oh, it's great.
You get that email. You're like, "Hey, I didn't know if you knew this, but on minute 17, whatever, right? You missed this, or there's a huge blank, or there's whatever, right? There's echo. So you have to go, oh crap, and then you got to pull it down and redo the edit and then put it back up.
It's great fun. You have any fails in your history?
Yeah, so actually your second fail this morning was my fail this week. So it's a marathon. It's a marathon podcast week for me, both with my own podcast and at Gallup. And so I did podcast on Tuesday. I did another one on Thursday. We did testimonials Thursday night. When we do these coaching courses, I record little 7-minute testimonials from the coaches that take the course when they're done. And so the class had been in Sydney, Australia. And the first time I was working with this individual there, and she was very nervous about setting up the equipment, because we had to set up like a little makeshift studio so I could record them there. And so getting the microphone and getting everything set up, and we did a test call. And so the day comes, it's Thursday night for me, and we're recording these, and they're going really well. And I'm like, man, I am good tonight. I am on. I'm asking the right questions. These are going to be great. This is some of the best work I've ever done. And so the last gal that come through, her name was Lisa, and we were talking. I'm like, Lisa, it was great having you on. Thanks for doing what you do, and I'm going to let you go now. So I go down to the bottom of the Google Hangout to click Stop Record, and it says Start Broadcast. It's still green, and it says Start Broadcast. And I'm like, I have been talking for 45 minutes. Including talking to my producer, who I have a guy who does all the video editing for me on the work side, and so I was leaving him little notes during the so-called recording that. Right. So you feel foolish. You're like, hundreds of hours, Dave. I've done hundreds of hours of recording in the last 3 years. And I just forgot to click, and it's staring at me the whole time. That button down there on the Google Hangout, it says start. It's green. It says Start Broadcast. It couldn't be any bigger. And so I had to send that email of shame, to the gal that says, and a million thoughts went through my mind. Well, maybe I'll just tell her Google made something went wrong on Google.
Who can I use as a scapegoat?
It was technology's fault. And so I said, well, I'm not going to ruin their day. I went to bed, woke up the next morning. First thing, came down, wrote that email, said, hey, I'm an idiot. I got none of those in. I'm sorry. I just kind of groveled, and she said, no problem. This will give us an opportunity to invite those guys back into the office anyways, and so we'll just do it again. So yeah, epic. That was like one of those moments, and you're like, you can't. It's not like a bad recording. It's no recording. I mean, and there's some, people have asked me, well, don't you do a backup on that? And so I said, in this case, I've just done it so much, I've just relied on the Hangout. So anyway, epic
fun.
fail.
Yeah, well, we actually have a caller, I believe from across the pond, because your phone number ends in 6687. So let me click on talk, and you are on the internet with Dave and Jim. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, guys. This is definitely from across the pond. I wonder if you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, you can. Hopefully you can hear us fine.
I hear you folks just fine. I'm Nilo from northern Sweden, so from a very exotic location, I guess.
Yay, this is cool.
Indeed it is.
I'm excited.
Sure is. Me too. Very excited. I just hope I'm not completely off the mark here, since I guess, actually, I don't think I'm a podcaster.
Well,
is it okay that I ask some questions anyway?
You don't have to be. Are you a wannabe podcaster?
I might be.
Okay. Well, I don't know what your question is, but I shoot, and we'll let you know if it's off topic or not.
Well, just a little bit of background here. I'm in education. I'm a teacher, and what I've been doing is that I've been fooling around with Hangouts quite a bit for roughly a year or so, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And my motivation here is to get teachers connected, or people in education, not just teachers, getting educators connected. And I might paraphrase the folks at EdReach, giving educators a voice, since that's really something that's lacking, I think, at least in this part of the world.
Okay, what's your question?
And I've been wondering, one specific thing is I'm wondering about, is there any way of automating the process of getting the audio out of the Hangouts on air recording, like ripping off the audio?
Well,
so far I haven't found out any way of doing that.
What I'm doing right now is I'm doing both. For those of you listening on audio, I'm holding up my portable recorder, which is recording I'm going into a mixer. So I have, everybody's going to the Google Hangout as well. And you could always pull down the video later and easily strip it out of the video. But as far as I know, there's no tool yet to automatically strip the audio out. Jim, you're much more...
Yeah, no, I do this every single week. So, and it's not automated, but it's easy, right? So just go to Google, download the MP4, and then there's a little plug-in for Audacity, and in just Google, audio and Audacity through an MP4, and you'll get... I forget the name of the plug-in. I'll look it up here while we're talking, but you throw that MP4 into Audacity, and then you can just it basically just gives you the WAV file like you would on a regular recording, and then you can just export that in any format that you want.
Yeah, I've been actually using this whatever weird software, something like what is it called? Free YouTube to MP3 something. Converter.
Yes, yeah, you can use those. I haven't had a lot of success with those, to be honest with you. I haven't liked them as much.
It's been working like a clockwork,
Okay, very good.
But the problem is that it doesn't do it automatically. It takes some manual work, and I just love to get rid of that part.
Yeah, it'd be great if there was a way to just have it automatically just do that. But unfortunately, what I do, anything with video, a lot of times I will go through and like I'll actually pull this video down. I actually, depending on how the show, well, I know I'll be editing this show just because of the intro, but if I'm doing anything with video that I know is going to take a long time, those are things I do while I'm sleeping. I will literally say, okay, and render the video, and I'm off to bed. Because I guess it depends on how fast you want the turnaround to be. But I just know that's going to take a while to render the video and to get the audio. So there are times with situations like that I just go, yeah, this is going to take a while. And if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/callburner, that is a Skype recording software, but I have a video there that shows how to use, in this case, Callburner to record a Skype call, but I also then show you how to take, I believe that video shows how to take the audio and put it into Audacity the same way, because I think it does something similar, but it's, I think it'll actually tell you in Audacity to install a plugin.
Yeah, it's called FFmpeg.
Yeah, there we go.
Is what that is. And now in the newer versions of Audacity, that library, you can add it. If you go to Preferences and Libraries, there is where you can download it right from there and install it. So it doesn't come native, but you can install it after the fact.
There you go. Any other questions, Nilo?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of curious, actually, the way you see it about podcasting, like whatever is, I don't know, traditional podcasting. Is there such a thing? I don't know. I guess lines are blurring these days, but like you and quite a few, if I've got it right, you pro guys, you are doing this live thing, and to me somehow live is the really fun part. I couldn't actually imagine sitting somewhere by the mic on my own, and recording the stuff, being off air. The really fun part for me is being, like live. How do you feel about that?
Well, number one, I always tell people, for my opinion, and that's all this is, I tell people do not start live. I mean, I've been doing this for, Jim we talked off the show here about different ways that we still occasionally forget to do stuff. And the more elements you add to your show, the more things you have to remember to press record, and you have to hit this and unmute that and write this and all that whole 9 yards. The other thing to think about, now it's fun as I look out at the chat room, we've got 9 people in our chat room. So hello, chat room. Thank you guys for showing up. Always appreciate that you're here. But if I was a brand new show, you know how many people I would have in the chat room? A whole lot of nothing. And so as much as you go, well, at least if I'm talking live, I've got an audience. No, you don't, unless you've got a blog or a newsletter that's been doing that. So you are going to be talking to the wall when you first start up. So why not get used to number one, everybody hates the sound of their voice when you first start off. That's a given. You will hate the sound of your voice, and get used to talking into the microphone. And when I record a podcast that's not live, I am picturing you sitting across the table, and I'm going to talk to my friend and tell him about this great stuff I heard or something that I learned. And don't think of it. There is broadcasting, podcasting. I don't know who termed it, but narrowcasting, niche casting. Think of it as one person, because nobody's listening in a room. It's like, hey, we're going to have a School of Podcasting listener party, and everybody's sitting in a room. So I always say things like, I want you to do this. I try not to say things like you guys or hey, everybody, or things like that. I feel like I'm talking to one person. So it is a little different, and you are not the first person to go, I don't feel comfortable talking to the wall. And so this is where, in some cases, I've had people go to a magazine and try to figure out who your target person is and cut out a picture of who you think the target is. When I first started, I was doing a podcast for musicians. So I had a picture of basically a person like me when I was 17, black hair, black leather jacket, in his garage, freezing. He's got a Fender amplifier. He's playing a Gibson and I had this mental picture, and that's who I was talking to. And so they both have their pros and cons. There is a thrill of doing something live. When I see John Parker throw in a question here in the chat room, that's awesome. But there's pros and cons of each. But I hate to see people try to start live, because it adds a lot more complexity to it. So it depends on your level. So Jim, anything you want to? I know you do a lot of live stuff, Jim.
But Dave,
Yeah.
what,
Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Neil, and then we'll get Jim's opinion.
I was just wondering, Dave, what is your motivation for doing live stuff? Since
Oh,
practically no one looks at or is watching the live stuff. You got your listeners, I bet, like 99% listening to audio. What is your motivation for doing the live stuff? It seems that most of you pro guys are doing live stuff as well these days.
Because at the School of Podcasting, I say everything you need to know about podcasting is in one place. Well, if that's going to be true, I've got to know how to do live. So I actually started this show as was just an experiment. I wanted to play with Blog Talk Radio, and I'm using Call-In Studio now. So if somebody asked me a question, how do I do a live show? I had to know how to do it. So I started it, and then lo and behold, people started showing up, and I'm still getting better at it. And to me, it's great to look out in the chat room and see the same people every week. And now it's, Jim's my buddy. I enjoy talking with Jim every Saturday. I should also mention today, speaking of live shows, I'm going to be, if you go to geeknewscentral.com, I'm going to be on the New Media Show at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. That's with Todd Cochran and Rob Greenlee. So we'll be talking some more podcasting today for that. But yeah, that's the main reason. And just, it gives me an avenue to, number one, it's for me, I love it now that I do have some people showing up. And I get to get a better understanding of my audience. Number two, I will have that person that really, 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 really wants to podcast, but they really, 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 really have absolutely no money. And I'm like, great. If you'd like free consultation every Saturday at 10:30, here I am, and I'll be more than happy to answer any question you have. So that's another, that's like almost option B, because I hate telling people, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you for an hour for free because I have wives and kids and bills, and so I have to charge for that. And but if you have no money, even if you're across the pond, you can call in and chat all you want. So, Jim.
That's pretty cool. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Jim, your thoughts on live versus...
we've talked about it a lot, but I'm with Nilo there. Nilo or Nilo?
Nilo, actually.
Nilo. Right, Nilo? In the sense that I really struggle to podcast if I don't have an audience listening. I'm not good at Dave. In fact, I listen to you every week, Dave, on School Podcasting, and I'm always amazed at what you can do with no audience in front of you. And so I grew up on live podcasting. That's where I started. Although that's not really true. When I very first 4 years ago, it was a couple of us guys just talking together with no live audience. We did that for about a year before I introduced a live audience into things and said, hey, we really need to go live on Ustream. So I like the live. It is complicated, but I have trouble doing it without a live audience.
It's
all right.
Maybe I just have a good imagination, and I'm picturing people listening.
No, you do that well, Dave. You do that well. So
awesome. There you go. But it is fun. It's still a conversation when it's not live. It's just time shifted. My buddy Tim in Michigan does the Sled Dog podcasting, and he used to say, Dave, I talk to you more than my friends, because he would send in a voicemail. I would play it on the show and reply to it. He would hear it on Monday, send another question in on Tuesday. I would talk about it on my show, and we just had this time-shifted conversation going on. And he said, some of my friends I hung out in high school, I talked to maybe, once or twice every 2 months. He goes, I talk to you on a weekly basis. So, it is a time-shifted. It's still a conversation. It's just time-shifted. So,
Nilo, any other questions for you?
One more thing, if I may.
Sure.
About this calling in thing. I've been listening a bit earlier as well, and you guys have been trying some different things. What has been working best for you guys? This seems to work just fine. What's the deal? How are you doing this?
I'm actually going to make a video on this, because that's probably a question I get at least twice a week. How are you doing that? We're using a service called Call-In Studio. Now, in the past, we had issues with this, and I don't know why, but we kept dropping calls. So far, we're fine on this, and so we're using Call-In Studio. The only thing that's changed is I'm now calling into Call-In Studio with an actual phone where we used to call in via Skype. But I know you're calling in via Skype, and you're fine. So
Nope.
No?
I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not. This is not Skype.
Oh, okay. So that must be a heck of a...
This is I guess it's Google Voice.
Okay.
Since I initiated the call from Gmail.
Okay, great. So so we're using Call-In Studio, and then that meant, in theory, if I was going to use my cell phone, which I'm using right now, that was going to mean that for an hour-long show, 240 of my cell plan was going to go for Ask the Podcast Coach. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. So I bought a thing called Magic Jack, which is allows you to get a phone number for, I don't know what it was, $40 maybe. I think it's $30 a year. It was $40 for the little device. And then the fun part is you can get an app for your phone, and you can take phone calls using Wi-Fi. So I'm actually connected to you so I take this is why it's fun. I take my phone via my Magic Jack app via Wi-Fi that dials into Call-In Studio, and then the Call-In Studio, obviously you call into that, and then I'm using a thing called an iRig that plugs into the iPhone that then puts you into the mixer. It is quite the mess. If when I get done with this video, half the reason I haven't made the video yet is diagramming what's going on, because I'm running not one but two mixed minuses here. So it's a lot of fun. But I've had a lot of people ask, and I'm like, I need to. This is not something that works well in audio, so I need to just be quiet. But I need diagrams and charts and arrows and things like that. But yeah, I'm using Call-In Studio, and the reason for that, I've used Blog Talk Radio in the past. Blog Talk Radio is $40 a month. I think right now it's costing me about $4 an episode to do it with Call-In Studio. And right now I would say, yeah, I would recommend them. I haven't had too many issues. And I know Nick Suberling from Start Talking and Recording Today, he's another great podcaster, and he's used Blog Talk Radio in the past. He said they dropped off just as much as Call-In Studio did. So, and those are, what's the other one? TalkShoe is another one. Yeah, so right now I'm using Call-In Studio. And Call-In Studio has all the bells and whistles that Blog Talk Radio does. If I want to have a call screener and things like that, you can do that as well. So.
Okay. Before I call it quits here, so
Sure.
It might be of interest for your international listeners that calling from, I think, anywhere in the world to the States is free if you initiate the call from Gmail using Google Voice. So it's kind of cool.
Well, you said you're in Sweden?
Yeah, that's right.
What is the podcasting scene like? If I know over here now, I had a class on Friday, and I always ask my classes every now and then, depending on how they are. Has anybody heard of podcasting? And it's getting much better, where I might have a couple people in a class of say 15 that go, I've never listened to one, but most people have at least heard of it or have listened to at least one. If you were to ask that question over in Sweden, is it still just brand new over there, or people picking it up, or what's it like on that side of the pond?
Oh, well, I think there are lots of misconceptions about the whole thing. Like uploading audio files might be called podcasting. And I guess it's not.
Yeah.
But actually, for me, I'm into connecting people in education, and if I have many listeners apart from that or not, I really don't care at all. So it's kind of a different thing. But I think, podcasting scene is very, very tiny here, I think. Definitely.
Some opportunities for it to grow.
It's not unknown.
Yeah, that's the good news is
there are opportunities to grow, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nilo, have you gotten involved with Connected Classrooms then, the Google initiative, Connected Classrooms?
I know about that, but I haven't been involved directly.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, and that you might want to check that out. Just go in the Google Plus groups category and look Connected Classrooms. Google is throwing a lot of money and a lot of attention at connecting educators together. So if you're in the connection business, that might be a great place for you to get involved.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for the tip.
Yeah, you bet. That's not a podcasting thing. That's just a Google Plus.
That's a Google thing. Do you have a website or anything you'd like to plug before we go right ahead?
Well, yeah, the stuff I'm doing. If you guys Google "Be Smart on Air," then you'll find my stuff there.
Awesome. Well, Nigo, thanks so much
So that's
for stopping in.
it's been a ton of fun.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for calling in.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you
Keep
very
up
much.
Good work, guys.
Will do.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care. Dude, we just had a call from Sweden. How cool was that?
International. We're in it. We're officially international now.
I am giddy. I am absolutely giddy
That's
about
cool.
that.
Well, that worked out well.
Yeah. Well, let's keep the questions coming here. We got one from John Parker. John, he said he'd call in, but he's not feeling well. He's got bronchitis, and that. So I'm sorry to hear that. He says, "What steps do I need to take to rebrand my podcast to another name? Hosting with Libsyn. Want to keep my old episodes, but keep with another name and change the show's focus. Do I need to create a new Libsyn feed? What about for iTunes? Well, depending on where it's pulling the information from, if you've submitted your Libsyn feed, you just change the name of the show in that. Now, if it's going to be like, if it's going from the Knitting Cast to the NASCAR Cast, that's going to be different because that audience isn't going to want to listen to what you're changing to. But if I change like the morning announcements to the How to Podcast show, I could just probably go in and change the name. It's going to be the same audience, and it would just update in iTunes, and you would have your back catalog that would have all your old branding and your MP3s. And depending on how much you want to go through and, clean that up, or if you just say, look, if it's a collector's item, you can go back and get the old shows with the old artwork, things like that. If you're using PowerPress in, Blueberry on your WordPress site, again, you just change the name. It depends on, are you changing so much that it's a whole new audience? So if you can let us know on that in the chat, we'll keep that up. But Jim, you just did that, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So we took Home Tech and changed it to Home Gadget Geeks, and so it's surprisingly there's a lot more to it than you think. It's not hard. It's just you've embedded that name in a variety, not with just your host provider, with that being Libsyn, and not with just your on PowerPress, right? Those are the first two places you should go to. But think about like Spreaker and Intune and iTunes is easy too, by the way. All you have to do is send them. I would just use their email address, podcast at is it at Apple? Podcast@apple.com. Is that right?
I believe it's it.
I think that's right. To do that, but the iTunes, and it's even easier in PowerPress. You can just change things and then hit a link, and it automatically resubmits it for you, and that takes a couple days, and it's taken care of. But you embed that information all over the place, including I use Pretty Links. So you have to start thinking about, okay, I used a little code identifier in Pretty Links for my show. So it's not hard. You should just maybe sit down and think about where are all the places that I use that name. Like Stitcher did not update automatically, so I had to do some things, some trickery, and I still don't know if they've gotten my right artwork at Stitcher. I think they finally do. I think they run feeds weekly or monthly or something where they update the entire feed, but it will require a little bit of work depending upon where you've placed everything.
Yeah, and
Does that make sense?
He says it is the same audience, so that's the good news.
Piece of cake then. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's easy, right? But it's some work. But it's nothing. It's nothing like that takes advanced science to figure out and get done. If you figured out how to get it posted there in the first place, one of the tips. Here's a little tip for you on this. One of the things I did early, I learned after my very first podcast, is keep a text doc or some kind of doc somewhere. Use Evernote or OneNote or whatever to keep track of where you put all your stuff. So, like what's your iTunes URL? What's your feed burner, if you have one of those? What is your Intune? What is your Stitcher ID? What is your RSS feed? Right? All these things where you've put stuff. That way, if you have a major change, you can just go back to your text doc that's got where all these places. Because that's a question, Dave, we see all the time, which is, what are all the places I should submit my podcast to? Well, if you do submit it and it gets accepted, make a note so that you know to go back and fix it if you do update your podcast title.
And being that we're at the halfway mark, I do want to mention that today's show is brought to you by askthepodcastcoach.com/myspeed. This is the software I bought. It's so well worth it. I finally am in the process of moving the School of Podcasting again. I started this process. I found the theme of my dreams and I loaded it, but it works with it's going to work with WooCommerce for the affiliate program, and it's super duper feature rich, which of course means there's a phenomenal learning curve. And the good news is the guy that made the theme has all of his documentation in YouTube, and I'm able to go through, I'm blasting through all the know-how of this at 3x. So if you're interested in that, go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/myspeed. I do earn a small affiliate commission for that, and it's a way to support the show. So speaking of more questions, were we talking about more questions? Well, we are now. Don't forget.
Okay.
Oh, that's not it. You know what I want to play? Just because it's fun. I want to say a big shout out to Ryan Parker, who I think will be dubbed this forever now. He said, "Oh, I deleted the file.
Oh no!
Look at this. It's right there. It says it on my iPad.
Oh,
Ryan, punch you in the face," but I deleted it off the iPad.
Face, Parker.
Yeah, and he is the star of my last episode. We were talking about pod fading. We talked a little bit about it last week. Right now, I'm hosting. John asked in the chat room. Right now, I'm hosting at HostGator, and I'm switching to what I'm going to do, because the problem with moving a site that is active is you have to pick a time to say switch now before I add more, because every time I added a new episode, I had the new website and the old website were out of sync. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild the School of Podcasting's membership area with its own domain name. And because really the people that are, because right now there are times when my site is too slow. And when is it too slow? It's the members that are in there and they're trying to watch videos. And even though I have my videos now on Vimeo and things like that, there are times when it's just a little slow. So what I want to do is get the members off onto this super fancy, much faster kind of website. And then we'll see how that works. And if I need to, then maybe later I'll bring over the actual School of Podcasting to that. But I want to get the members out of there. And by doing this, I can now have my membership site on the School of Podcasting while I rebuild the new and improved membership site area on the other one. Because we had a whole thing where it I can't share the new theme yet. And the reason for that, and I apologize, the person who told me about the theme has something in the works, and I just can't say yet. I'll have to get clearance from him. But he said, he goes, Dave, I'm going to tell you about this because you're going to love it, but you can't share that you're using this yet. And I'm like, what? So you know what? Shame on me for even saying that, because I hate people that do that. They're like, oh, I found something really, really cool. I can't tell you about it yet. So my apologies for that. I will punch myself in the face later for that. So,
punch myself in the face.
Yes,
That's
which
awesome.
would make entertaining video if nothing else.
A little slapstick comedy.
Yeah. So if you do want to call in, the number is 845-262-2401. He said,
Mike Howard had a question on Intune, so I mentioned that, and the only reason I mentioned it is because there had been a thread that started on Google Plus about getting your podcast in Intune, and Intune is not something I've ever used. Dave, are you familiar with Intune?
I was going to say Intune? I'm like,
Yes.
This is a new one. Here, I always think of...
Yeah, all right, here we go. So go to Intune.com. They're a lot like a Spreaker or a Mixler or a Stitcher. More of these are starting to pop up, and I've heard about it for a while, but I never really never paid attention to it. And so when that thread came up on Google Plus, I thought, oh, Intune, let me check this thing out.
Well, right now, what's the website? Because I'm on Intune.com.
Intune, let's see, TUNEIN, all one word? That redirected.
I have Intune.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not Intune. It's TuneIn. Sorry.
Okay.
Dyslexia there.
So I'm going, what?
Sorry about that. No, TuneIn. I'm sorry. Everybody's like, what the heck is he talking about? TuneIn.com. There we go. TuneIn. And have you heard of TuneIn.com?
No, this is a new one.
It looks a lot like Spreaker, doesn't it?
It sure does.
It sure does look a lot like Spreaker. Well, so I thought, well, let me go out and try this TuneIn. And so Mike Howard had asked the question, how do Yeah, sorry. No, Mike. I said Intune to begin with. That'd be a
Boy,
good name for a
this
site.
looks a lot like.
It does, doesn't it?
Wow.
Yeah. You need to send them an email, broadcasters-support@tunein.com. That's the skinny of it. There is an FAQ that I use that's out in the podcasters. The podcasters group has a thread going about this, but you basically you send them some information. So you send them the name of your podcast, what location you're in, what your RSS feed is, your site URL, what genre you want to be in, your email address, and your Twitter handle. Just list those in an email. Send that to broadcaster-support@tunein.com. And I attached a 14 by 1400 logo to the email as well. And within 2 days, they had it set up, and on the third day, it rose again, and it was there. And available. So about a 3-day turnaround at this point. And it looks like they're making a run. And I think the site's been around a while, and I think they're trying to make, they've been re-energized, so to speak, to do some stuff. But again, in the category of one of those places. And here, I'll share my. Let me share my screen here.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, because I'm like, is this more Mixler or more Spreaker?
Well, let's pop in there real quick.
I
So,
love the share the screen option.
Yeah. So there's Home Gadget Geeks. That's the one I submitted for them, and it does a nice job of pulling in. In fact, when you come to the page, just click the play button right there, and it gets going. But there's not. I don't think it's. I think it's different from Mixler and Spreaker that I don't think they have broadcasting options yet. It's just listening. So it automatically pulled in my RSS feed. So these are all the shows that we've done forever. It pulled all those in for me. And I'm not logged in as me, so let me sign in real quick here.
So is it a media host? Let me take off your screen in case you have anything.
No, I just signed it.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. It just started playing automatically there.
Is this is it a media host?
It's no, it's going to pull off your RSS feed. It's what it's going to do. So you give them your RSS feed, and they're going to pull it in and aggregate it for you. And their original run was at radio stations. So you can see here there are some. These are my local radio stations here in Omaha that I would get access to, since once I put a location in, they have some things. But they've started taking podcasts as well, and so it's just another site aggregation location.
Got it. So in that aspect, it is a little bit like Spreaker without the broadcasting capability.
Without broadcasting, and you don't have to upload your MP3s to it, right? They're really just a site aggregator from that sense. They're going to take your feed and they're going to stream it from you. Now, John Parker says he's been using TuneIn from his internet radio stations. Problem with them is that many people can be listening, but it only shows up as one listener in your stats, since TuneIn redistributes the feed. Not sure how it works with podcasting, even though I have my podcast there as well. Is what he says.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I went over to sign up, and apparently I've done this a while ago. It says this email is already registered with TuneIn.
Yeah. Like I said, I think a couple years ago they came out. I think we all went to it. It wasn't that great. We all dropped it. Then, like everything else, somebody brings it up, and we're like, oh, yeah, I wonder what's going on over there now. And then, you start, you come back to it, and well, that's the Mixler page. That's not where I want to go. I was going to, let's see if I still have TuneIn up. I lost my page, but I think if I search Home Gadget Geeks, it will just, well, sure, there should have been a result for my query. Let's try that again. Home, I think I saw it. D, G, okay. I thought I saw it pop up. There it is. So just pop on that, and then the show's right there. So it's a nice little layout. They've got I think they have an Android and iPhone app as well.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I think what it is, I think they just got a facelift.
Yeah.
But it says, if you want to add, this is where I know this from, adding your podcast to the TuneIn, you can, currently we're manually, easy for me to say, manually adding podcasts to the directory. You can add a podcast by emailing broadcaster, just like Jim said.
Yep.
Send the title, the location. I'm assuming that's your website. Nope, that's your location.
That's physical location, because they're going to want to feed you. They want to know local. Their whole goal is to get local on these things.
Now, here's the thing that's kind of dumb in my opinion. Send your logo not in a 1400 by 1400 because gosh, that would be way too easy. 1200 by 1200, less than 2 megs. And
I sent them my 14 by 14 and they were fine with it.
Okay, I was going to be like, why would you have, because a lot of people, we can talk about images here in a second, but yeah, 1200 by 1200, less than 2 megs. Send your RSS feed, your website address, your genre, your email, and then your Twitter optional. So if you're using Blog Talk Radio /Spreaker, note that the future episodes information listed in your feed that does not include the audio associated with them may corrupt the feed on TuneIn. We recommend only adding new episode information to your feed when the audio is available to prevent this. I'm not sure I
They're
understand
your
what
host
saying.
providers. If Blog Talk Radio or Spreaker are your hosts, and you're adding this feed, you're grabbing their RSS feed and giving it to them. There's some compatibility issues. That's what they're saying.
Got it. So
that's going to affect like 4 people in the world. So, no, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of people on Blog Talk Radio.
Well, the one thing I thought we could talk about today is using the right tool for the job. And I realize there are people with no budget for podcasting. And I had a member of the School of Podcasting, super nice guy, super smart guy. And he started making his own podcast album art. Now here, for again, the record, I'm not saying you have to do this, right? We hate absolutes. But I am not a graphic artist. I can find my way around Photoshop. I'm okay. But nonetheless, when I have album art made, I go over to my resource. She charges me a whopping $30, and usually I get it back in a day or two. And it always looks much better than anything I would have done. And so what had happened was with iTunes and your album art, it has to be, well, it should be 1400 by 1400 because it's going to end up on Apple TV. And if you have a smaller image, you'll never be featured and your artwork will look like caca. And so it also has to be for iTunes less than 500 megabytes, right? Or is it yeah, it's got to be megabytes. No, is it kilobytes? I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it has to be under a certain size. So what had happened was he had submitted his podcast, but the artwork didn't show up because he probably did it, as most people would think, I want it to be high res. Well, actually, with a computer, depending on who you talk to, computers only read 72 or up to 90 dots per inch. So anything above that is just lost. It's like trying to watch a Blu-ray on an old TV. That detail is just going to be lost. So he's unfortunately now kind of in a frustrating place. He's got his artwork fixed, but it cost him probably a day or two of headaches and researching answers and things like that. And so I just say in some cases it's much better to, as much as we hate parting with money, find the right tool for the right job. In this case, let somebody who's doing artwork do your artwork, because it can just save you. I always tell people, they go, well, what do you do? And I could say I teach people how to podcast, but in reality, what I do is I help people avoid headaches in some cases. So it's, and I saw somebody in the Google Plus group, she was trying to record on a BlackBerry. And I think the whole group went, because it was just like, what's a BlackBerry at this point?
Yeah.
So if you can, try to get the right tool. I don't take my car to the dentist.
Like your Daniel, right? Then he's a graphic design guy. Yeah, I mean, he's great at doing all that stuff, right? But if you're not, there are plenty of other resources. One suggestion I have, and something that's worked really well for me, is I look around my environment, try and find local friends or brand. Like, so example, a lot of the artwork, when you saw the Home Gadget Geek logo, right? That was actually done by a junior in high school who's aspiring to be a graphic design guy. And I met with him and said, hey, look, I've got an audience of 1,000, let's just say. And let's do a trade. You do the artwork for me, and I will display it and give you credit from that standpoint. If anybody asked me, he's not looking to make money at this point, but I am trying to give him some exposure, right? So it's a nice mix, right? It's a good setup. So he does the artwork for me. And then I'm going to help him, eventually I'm going to help him set up his own site and get his own blog going and get a place to put his, to display all the work that he's done. That's kind of the agreement that we've had. It's really a good yin and yang situation from that standpoint. So we've talked about this before. You can do that with musicians, right? You need music for your podcast. Don't go on the internet and just find stuff and rip it off. Find a local musician, ask them if they'll record a couple little riffs for you. Then you'll give them credit and advertise for them, right? At the bottom of, when I've done that in the past, on the post, each and every post at the bottom it says, music by, and then I put it in there with their link. My kid's band, my oldest son's a drummer, and he's been in some bands. I've used their music in the past. I asked them; they were thrilled to have me use their music, right? They were like, "Yeah, are you kidding?" I mean, to them that was a great day that someone would pick up their music and put it on a podcast. And they didn't know, 500 people are going to hear it, right? But that's probably maybe 500 more people than were listening to it before. So, just saying. But so, both with graphics and with music, and maybe even web design, right? Find somebody who's looking to get into that business and partner with them.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think by next week, the Get Noticed theme by Michael Hyatt will be officially publicly released. And I know 2 people that own it, and I know 2 people that are absolutely in love with it, because if you're a person that's kind of using your podcast to market a product or service, it's just got everything built in. And I've been watching some of the videos. It looks really cool. Now, it's also one of the most expensive themes I've ever ran across. It's $200 in a nutshell. And I'm like, I buy a lot of themes just to play with them because it's, whatever, $30, $40. And I'll do that, again, just because I'm always looking for the answer. What is the ultimate theme? And this one looks really promising, but it's like, again, for some of my audience, they're going to go $200. I only spent $56 on the microphone. And speaking of that, that is what the Audio-Technica 2100 is going for today. The 2005 is going for $59. So it's like a stock price.
It's great. I've bought a lot of those, and so I buy them as they fluctuate on the market too. And I just bought some new equipment. We're setting up a brand new studio at Gallup, and actually, I don't have anything to say about it at this point because I'm not ready. But I got a 12 channel Mackie for the mixer, which was a mixer that I've seen out there, but not a lot of folks had, and I bought it so I could review it a little bit later too. I had some options with work and the right budget to be able to get a big mixer. We're going to have a lot of inputs coming into that thing. What I'm most interested in, Dave, is I'm working with a wireless lapel and a wireless body pack that sends in-ears monitors back. We're going to have an instructor at the front of the room that we're going to be doing some interactive instruction, and so I'm super interested in this concept of podcasting without these big microphones, and what is it like to move to a lapel with cameras and have in-ear monitors going. So a little bit different of a setup, a little bit of tweak on what we currently use, and so over the next 4 or 5 months or so, I'll be doing a lot of testing around what's it like to set up a classroom like a podcast, like the same kind of, I'm coming at it from that perspective, which is what happens if you create a podcast that's really educational and that's designed for interactivity. What if you came in and took a class, and you do this a little bit with your classes, right? You have people in and you teach them this way. We're going to kind of do that on a little bit bigger of a scale.
Very cool. And the other thing I thought we could talk about today, just for those, we as much as we talk about, wait a minute, before I get into that, Steve has a question. Anyone had any luck with people on Fiverr or Elance? Yes, I have. I've used Fiverr for some stuff. Be very careful on Fiverr. My favorite was, there was a guy on Fiverr who was explaining how he could do voiceover for you, and then in every one of his examples, he used licensed music. Like, here's me talking over Kool and the Gang, and then here's me, and I was like, you do know that's like illegal. Speaking of music, everybody asked that question. If I use 6 seconds of, no. If I do, what if I get, no. Yeah, the answer is no, you can't use it unless you want to be Dan Miller or Michael Hyatt and spend literally 9 months negotiating that. You can't use music in that. So that's the only thing with Fiverr. If you're doing voiceover, make sure that you get it in writing that it's free for you to use their music. And Elance is cool. The problem you'll have with Elance, because I use Odesk is another one. I occasionally will go on Odesk looking for people that have podcast questions. The only, I don't want to even call it a problem, is you're dealing now on a global platform, so you may have people where English is not their first language, and you also may have a deal where you ask them a question, and just due to this lovely thing called time, they're in a different time zone. They will, it might take a day to get your answer, which is sometimes frustrating because they'll answer your question. You're like, oh, great, I didn't know that. What about this? Well, there's another 24 hours for them to go and give you an answer. So, definitely have a Skype account and see if you can set that up. But in some cases, I know a lot of people use people from the Philippines. I have no idea what the time difference is with the Philippines, but you can definitely get some good help. I'm looking into getting a virtual assistant through Chris Tucker's agency, and I know he's based in the Philippines. So, and one of the reasons I'm doing that is, again, people have asked me, have you ever used a virtual assistant? And I go, no, but I guess I should because I keep getting that answer. And Ryan Parker says Pond 5 is a great place for music. If you go to podcasting-resources or schoolofpodcasting.com/links, I've got links to all sorts of stuff out there. That is a free resource that I have.
I think SoundCloud still is a great place to go for that kind of stuff because there are a lot of musicians out there just throwing tracks out. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And you can grab one of those and say, hey, I'd love to use this in a podcast if you'll take it off SoundCloud. Because I definitely, here's the thing, you want that unique sound, I think. And so if you find something and just say, hey, in exchange for promotion, I will link, put a link at the bottom of each post to your SoundCloud account. You'll agree to let me use your music, this track, exclusively. You won't let anybody else use it, and you'll license it to me. And you can do a Creative Commons license on that and call it good, and bam, you're in business. So SoundCloud's another place, good place. And it's so easy to listen to them out there. That's the cool part.
Right. And the other great thing that I've used, because depending on what your, here I'm making a link for the chat room. The thing you have with some of this production music, they want 30, 50, in some cases $60 for one track. And I like places where I can I'll spend $30 if you give me a 2-minute version, a 1-minute version, a 30-second version, and a 10-second version. But don't forget about good old Amazon.com, where you can buy a royalty-free music track for $1. And then you can go into Audacity and make your own 10-second, 15-second version, things like that. And you can listen to it right online. Now, you can't hear the whole track. You get whatever it is, a 30-second preview. But if you just go into Amazon and search for royalty-free music, there's tons of CDs out there that have multiple tracks, and you can sample there. And instead of buying a whole CD of something that you don't want, because I'm just going to use these 2 tracks, you can just buy the track for $2, and now it's yours to do whatever you want.
Yeah, one little tip I'd have for that, Dave, is that if you do buy royalty free, and even though it's supposed to be, I've heard of some situations. Mike Howard kind of ran into this. He bought some royalty free stuff that eventually showed up in YouTube's ban list. And so one by one, his podcast started getting the ban notification, right? Oh, you've got copyrighted music in there, and it was a real pain for him. In this case, it was a real pain for him to get that taken care of. So here's what I would do, and this is what I have done. Whenever somebody suggests music to me, oh, you should do this, oh, yeah, it's royalty-free, blah, 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 I just import that into YouTube and leave it out there, and I monetize it, because that immediately starts the search engines there to find, because that's like a trigger for YouTube to say, is this being used somewhere else, and should we block it? And they'll scan it. And if it makes it out there a week or 2 or maybe even a month without that ban notification coming up, chances are you're going to be okay. And so I would because YouTube is really the place that's going to bite you with music.
Yeah.
I mean, they are nailing it there. So it's been a good little test that I've done. We had to we wanted to use some music of a friend for the Cyber Frontiers podcast that I do. One of the hosts said, hey, I got a friend that's in a band, we can use his music. And I said, well, have they submitted it to a label? No. Have they sold it anywhere? No. Is it completely theirs? Do they own it? Yes. Good. We're going to test it. So I uploaded the whole song to YouTube, turned on monetization, and waited. And I just let it cook for about 3 or 4 weeks to make sure it wasn't going to show up on a ban list anywhere. So far, and then I've left it out there because that'll be like the honeypot, right? If that thing goes, if they start banning that, chances are I've embedded that in other stuff, and I'll know, soon enough. So build your own little YouTube honeypot, so to speak. Get that music out there.
Yeah, that is one thing I've heard over and over and over. I know Todd Cochran, who I will be with in 30 minutes over at geeknewscentral.com, he had something in the background like a radio and it got flagged from YouTube.
Yes. Yeah.
So it wasn't where he was like piping it into the show. It just
No.
happened to be on the background. They're like, yep. So it must be something that just is automatically scanned. There must be like a library of waveforms that they go. I would think. I can't imagine there's somebody.
No, there's nobody doing it. It's all done automatically. Dave had the same thing happen. I was in a running race, and they were live streaming on YouTube the finish line, but they had a DJ playing music in the background. And so the first time I heard it, you heard the music. I didn't even think about it. The second time I went back to listen to it, the video had been banned because of the music that was playing from a DJ in the background. Right.
Hey,
So,
Jim, I know you had an appointment with Ryan. Is that at 11:30?
it's as soon as the show is done and Ryan's doing laundry. So if we got if we need to go a few extra minutes,
Okay,
I think Ryan will be okay.
Well, Emilio just popped in the chat room. So Emilio, if you want to call in, it's 845-262-2401. The reason I say that because we started like 6 minutes late because of all the fun-filled hitting of the wrong buttons and things like that. So if you have or if you want to throw it in the chat room, we prefer you call in. But again, that number is 845-262-2401. And
Have to be a quick question, probably.
have to be a quick question, but we are here every Saturday at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can find us again at schoolofpodcasting.com/live or askthepodcastcoach.com/live. And we've had quite the fun chat room going on today. It keeps filling up, and
It's been good. Yeah,
It's been a lot of
we're
fun.
gathering a little bit of an audience on Saturday mornings, which is a lot of fun. It's one of the I really look forward to the weekends now and getting on here at 9:30 Central and hang out with you guys that are in the chat room. It's good. Got a good group.
all right. And here he comes. I think. Nope, that's me. Okay, that's the old that I got surprised. I looked up and wait, this is no, we do have a caller. Here we go. I'm going to assume this is Emilio. So Emilio, you're on with Dave and Jim. What's your question? You're on with Dave and Jim. Remember we talked about how live is fun? He's not muted. So caller ending in 0240, you're on with Dave and Jim.
Maybe not.
Isn't live fun?
Yeah. Well, sometimes it works, and
Sometimes.
there's so many things that have to go right to make all this stuff work. You know,
Yeah.
just when you think about, even on the caller's end, most people are not calling on traditional phones anymore. They're calling through Skype or Google Hangouts, or just think. Well, Amelia, if you don't get through today, join us next week, 9 p.m. Central, 9:30 Central, 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah. Or just email me, Dave at schoolofpodcasting.com. That always works. And or if you want, between now and noon, I'll be at my desk, and I'll have the live chat on the School of Podcasting on if you want to stop by that way as well. And speaking of that, we do appreciate everybody tuning in today. And you can find us every week, schoolofpodcasting.com/live and Ask the Podcast Coach. This is one of our favorite places to be and answer your questions. And
remember, don't get punched in the face.
don't get punched in the face. And we do appreciate you. Hey, we're going to end with a fail as well. This is fun. I've got two sound clips going on. It's excellent. What is this thing called that I'm using? There we go. Soundbite. A fun program, but if you get two tracks going, it's fun, especially if they're on two different things to get in. So we are here. And Jim, where can people find you?
AverageGuy.tv.
And you can find me over at schoolofpodcasting.com. And don't forget, if you want to check out that fun-filled little speed-up video player, check that out at AskThePodcastCoach /MySpeed. And we will see you next Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach. You know what? I just thought about something. You probably couldn't hear a thing I said, did you?
Me?
Because the music's just still
No, I
going
could-
crazy.
It was loud, but I could hear you.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, there we go
No.
again. So I know we're still
all right.
going live. I now have to go around to the 8 billion things and
Yeah, no sweat. I'll just
Turn it
watch what I
off.
say.
yeah. Just so you know, we're still on Spreaker and we're still on Mixler,
Oh.
and I'm waiting for my Mac to wake up so I can turn this stuff off.
Sometimes I'm just a jackass.
Nah, Come on, Mr. Mac, wake up. There we go. Goodbye, Mixler. Yes,
I got the Mackie Pro FX12. That's what I bought this week for the studio. So that'll be nice little USB, the USB version. So
Oh, cool.
looking forward to kind of messing around with that. Yeah, and then I got a Shure body pack, Shure hybrid body pack system. It's the wireless transmitter.
Ah,
Yeah, so you can actually plug. I think I can plug the mic into it straight because we're gonna do a lapel mic too, and I think I can plug that straight into it and run it through the board. So got some testing to do. I haven't really done that kind of audio before, so I got some testing to do with the whole wireless setup of stuff. And then I bought a 4-monitor rack too for the studio at work. So it's 4 monitors in a square. 2 up high and 2 down low. Because when we're doing our live show, I've got 2 remote PCs up and working that I'm monitoring, and then 2 for the live show. And I'll have video in one, chat on the other, and then an open web page for various stuff that's going on. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's coming along nicely.
we're gonna wave bye to YouTube.
Bye, YouTube.
So enjoyed the after show. Thanks again to everybody. Because the chat room's going, we can still hear and see you.
Oh yeah. We know.
It's like, we know. So,
Yeah.
So now,
Little post show.
yeah, there you go. Thanks.